The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the third Doctor story, The Curse of Peladon. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. And Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Very well, thanks.
So, folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook.
None taken.
Right. Facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor. Did I say something wrong? Did I misspeak?
Oh, you know, Nanu dog-faced with a banana patch.
Okay. All right. Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook. Facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor Who. Retweet us on Twitter where we're at SQPN, and be sure to leave us comments in both places. We love to hear from you there. And I want to tell you about another show on the network you're sure to enjoy called Raising the Bets, with I do with my wife Melanie. You can check it out wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/bets. That's BETTS. So this episode, The Curse of Peladon, we're doing a little slightly out of order, as you may have noticed. This third Doctor story comes right before.
No, nobody notices.
I know.
No, we've got this spreadsheet where we have this intricate weaving back and forth through different doctors and stuff.
Well,
but
it's not that. We talked about the Sea Devils a few weeks ago, which is the third Doctor story that follows this.
Yeah,
but we did that one before this because of obviously the legend of the Sea Devil 13th Doctor story that is on Easter. So, I mean, there's always someone who realizes we've done something.
This is Doctor Who. This is Doctor Who. The answer is always wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
That's right.
Just anything that's confusing, just wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, and we move on.
Contact the Time Lord's Matrix for more details. All right, let's talk about this. Enough of that nonsense. Let's talk about the Curse of Peladon. Now, did Peladon come up in a 12th Doctor story? Was it mentioned there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we have the Empress of Mars episode where we see Alpha Centauri and the Ice Warriors who first appear in, or the Ice Warriors appeared before this, but Alpha Centauri appears in this for the first time.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And Peladon has its own legacy in Doctor Who fandom, which we can talk about. Yep. It is not just this episode.
Okay.
It's much bigger than that.
Okay. All right.
This is where we first see this.
Yeah.
I gotcha. All right, Jimmy, so why don't we have a recap of what goes on in this episode?
The third Doctor and Joe Grant arrive on the planet Peladon, which is at a turning point in its history. Peladon is a medieval planet in our far future, and it's about to have a new king coronated. It's also being evaluated for membership in the Galactic Federation, and a group of delegates from different races are there to evaluate it. The Doctor is mistaken for the delegate from Earth, and Joe is mistaken for an Earth princess. King Peladon falls in love with Jo and wants her to become his queen. But all is not well. On Peladon, they worship a one-horned creature called Agador that's half man, half bear, and half pig. And the high priest of Agador, a man named Hepesh, is afraid of joining the Galactic Federation and wants to preserve Peladon's medieval ways. To that end, he's formed a plot with the delegate from Arcturus to keep Peladon out of the Federation. Hepesh starts hoaxing Agador appearances and using the creature to kill and scare people, telling the king that they will face the man-bear-pig's vengeance if they don't preserve their traditional ways. Eventually, Hepesh stages a coup against the king and says that he will kill him if they don't give up plans to join the Federation. But the Doctor has hypnotized Agador into being his friend, and so when Hepesh tries to sick the creature on the Doctor, it kills Hepesh instead. Afterward, all is well, except the king still wants to marry Jo, and before they can watch the king's coronation, the real Earth delegate finally shows up, forcing the Doctor and Jo to make a quick exit. The end.
Do we have a sense of, like, when these... In Classic Who, they often are, like, traveling out into space, and it feels like the far future, because if Earth is, part of this Galactic Federation, it must be far future. But do we have a sense, like, does it always take place in the same general time frame?
No, this is one of the things that TARDIS Wikia has done a good job of, is integrating the chronology studies that fans have done of when things occur in relation to each other. And sometimes we're in the 30th century, sometimes we're in the 40th century, sometimes we're in the 50th century. It really varies. This time we're in, according to information in other media that help them be precise about it, this is like in the 40th century.
3885 is what Wikia shows.
39th then, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right. It's kind of interesting because there's that's one of the things I like, is that there feels like this story behind the story. There's a bigger story of the history of the galaxy, of the universe behind it, the events that we see. So I kind of like that. That feel like it feels like a bigger universe. So
and that comes up from time to time, because it can impact the stories they want to tell. Like, for example, in Orphan 55, in Jodie Whittaker's time, it contradicts the main established Doctor Who timeline, and so they had to frame that as, well, that's an alternate future that could happen, but it's not the established actual future.
Gotcha.
There's definitely a bigger story when it comes to Peladon. This is the planet's first appearance, but that mix of middle-age court politics and sci-fi that's like candy. And so even during the Third Doctor's time, we're going to go back to Peladon for the Bride of Peladon. And then in Big Finish spin-off media, there's The Prisoner of Peladon, The Ordeal of Peladon, The Poison of Peladon, The Death of Peladon, and The Truth of Peladon, to name a few. So Peladon is an established place. I'm sorry, it's the monster of Peladon.
Okay,
that is the next John Pertwee one. Bride of Peladon is Big Finish.
Oh, okay. Right. And it's not Joe who goes back with the Third Doctor. It's Sarah Jane.
That could be. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yes,
okay.
It is.
Okay. Because that would be awkward otherwise. Oh, hey, Joe, my once and future fiance. Peladon.
By the way, this may be what you were just going to mention, but King Peladon is himself David Troughton, the son of the Second Doctor.
Yes. Yeah, you could totally see the resemblance there. That there was a lot of, especially around the mouth, the way he talked. Yeah.
Well, and of course, we see David Troughton later in Midnight.
Yes.
The 10th Doctor episode. He was the professor in there,
where he looks very different. It's kind of funny. Like of course he's much older. He's 40 years older. But it's awesome to see the legacy there.
He, except for his height, because he's substantially taller, he looks, now that he's older, a lot like his father, and he sounds a lot like him now because the texture of his voice has changed. And so he's been voicing Patrick Troughton on Big Finish.
That's awesome. That is so cool. I like that. So we have, like you mentioned, there's this. The Doctor and Joe are traveling. Where are they going to? They're trying to go somewhere. They're testing the TARDIS. They're going back to someplace on Earth. So
previously, the Doctor has been working on trying to get the TARDIS functioning, because he's had knowledge. He's had his knowledge of temporal mechanics removed by the Time Lords and key components of the TARDIS removed. But he's constantly been trying to get it fixed to where he can leave Earth. And in the early series, before the 10th anniversary, he managed to get off of Earth like once a season when they had the funding for an outer space episode. But at the end of the previous episode, he had been working on getting it together. And so apparently he has barged in on Joe at the last minute, who was all dressed up in a fancy dress to go out on a date with Captain Yates. And he said, no, you must come with me for just a quick test flight on the TARDIS. And so they're trying to get back to Earth after this quick test flight, but instead they land on Peladon, where Joe's fancy dress actually helps create the impression that she is an Earth princess.
Right, because according to Peladon law, a woman, a woman may not enter the throne room unless she is royalty, on the pain of death. Death seems to be the pretty much the common punishment for most things on Peladon. So the planet is called Peladon. The king is called Peladon. So which is a little confusing.
Well, it is to Americans.
Yep.
It is less so to British folks, because in British culture, historically, people would frequently be called by the title of where they were a royal person.
That's true.
So if you are the Lord of Suffolk, let's say, I don't know that there is a Lord of Suffolk, but suppose you are, you would just be called Suffolk.
Right.
Yep.
And so King Peladon presumably has some other name, but because he's the king of Peladon, he gets called Peladon. Because the delegate from Alpha Centauri is from Alpha Centauri, he gets called Alpha Centauri. The delegate from Arcturus gets called Arcturus. It's all the same thing.
Okay.
These are galactic, higher up, hoity-toity people, so they get called by where they're from.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me of King Henry, Shakespeare's Henry the Third, Fourth.
Mm-hmm.
I forget which one.
One of those Henrys.
The Battle of Agincourt, and he talks to Gloucester, and he talks to that makes sense. And then we have the delegate from Arcturus, which is this funny little creature in a bubble on a pedestal.
Yeah, it's a little green squishy head with tendrils in a dome.
Yeah,
in a travel machine.
That's a little creepy. Then we have this insect-like Alpha Centauran.
Insect-like is interesting.
Yeah. I struggled to find a description.
I think the best way to describe the costume design for Alpha Centauri is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the Sixth Doctor's time, we dealt with the Vervoids, and the costume design for the Vervoids was also unfortunate. Depending on how you looked at their heads, they could either look like a part of female anatomy or a part of male anatomy.
Yeah.
But there's no ambiguity in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a Cyclops. It has one eye, and then right in the middle of the face.
It's the top of it is a whole eye. I mean, there's like nothing else but eye.
It's basically a giant eyeball. Yeah. Let's go with that. And then we have two ice warriors, Sorg and Isler. And
I really like how the Doctor assumes that, based on past encounters, that they're villains. And they're not.
Yeah.
And the Doctor is prejudiced against them, and he has to come around. And Jo comes around first because she's never met him before. She's more open-minded to the Ice Warriors. And no, they're actually good guys. They try to save the Doctor's life and stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's one of the things I like about, especially the early Doctors but really up through 4 and 5, the Doctor's often wrong. He doesn't know, he seems confident, but he's wrong. And so he has to learn over time and, adapt and change. And whereas I guess when you only have 45 minutes, the Doctor has to be mostly right out of the gate and be the smartest person in the room.
Not necessarily to the level that we do see especially in like the 10th and the 11th Doctor, where they know everything just because they know everything.
Right.
But yeah, so the Doctor doesn't know that at some point the Ice Warriors give up violence, which of course that we do see in the Empress of Mars. That was that episode. That's what happened.
Right. That's true. Yeah, because his last encounter was as the second Doctor when they were attacking on Earth, and so that was a very different experience. So I liked when the Doctor and Jo were lost in the tunnels beneath so the TARDIS materializes on a cliff, precariously perched, which seems to happen with all too much regularity, frankly.
Yeah, where have we seen that before?
Yeah, not too long ago.
Specifically at the end of the rescue and the beginning of the Romans, the TARDIS materialized and then fell off a cliff. That was our cliffhanger.
Yeah,
and that's what we have here. It materializes and then falls off a cliff.
Right.
That's really extreme TARDIS separation when it like falls 1,000 feet down the cliff or whatever it is.
Right.
They have a really dramatic shot of it going down from the Doctor and Jo's perspective. You're looking down the cliff, watching the TARDIS fall away into the distance.
Yes. And so they have to climb through some tunnels beneath the castle that's higher up on the cliff that Jo discovers. And I like at one point they're lost in the tunnel, so the Doctor does eeny, meeny, miny, mo to choose a direction. They hear a roar, which turns out to be Agador, and Jo chooses meeny. What I think should have happened is they hear the roar, and the Doctor should have said, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, oh, this way, Jo, and had a rhyme, and it would have been awesome.
Oh.
just these
missed
writers.
Opportunities.
I know these writers don't know anything about dad jokes. So,
oh yes, they do. The doctor then introduces her as Princess Josephine of Tardis.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He does. That's true. So there's a talk of the curse of Agador,
and she, after having been swept away on this TARDIS test flight and crashed on a planet and is now stranded. Once she assumes the persona of a royal, she really gets into it and is talking to the gang in the throne room about how her trip to Peladon was, and she says the whole thing was exceedingly deplorable. The pilot was most inefficient. Doctor standing right there.
Yeah,
the look he gave her is, if looks could kill type of deal.
Yeah. So I was going to say there's a talk of a curse of Agador, and then there's a talk of a curse of Peladon. And Agador is the big creature. Is that the same thing? Like this prophecy of the curse of Peladon?
Yeah, it's essentially all one thing.
Okay.
Agador is sort of their god, but it's also this man-bear pig, and it's kind of mythological at this point. But we're told later the Doctor somehow, I don't know, he remote views this or something because there's no explanation for how he learned it on screen, but. He tells us later that Hepesh, the high priest, found a bunch of Agador that still survive on some remote mountains and brought one in and trained it.
Okay. Yep. Thought to be extinct, but turns out not to be, and therefore, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This would kind of be like the cult of the cave bear on Earth if cave bears were rare.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we have this delegation from the Galactic Federation, and apparently they don't have a prime directive where you have to be, a spacefaring civilization to join, because, like we said, Peladon is apparently a medieval society.
Although it's clearly before they decided to join the Galactic Federation that there had been travelers to the planet, because King Peladon, his mom was an Earthling.
Right, that's true. That's true.
So that people had been already traveling to this planet before this.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of that, I wanted to comment on the costume. We mentioned the costume design people know what the Ice Warriors look like if they're regular fans of the show.
Yep.
But then we commented on what Arcturus and Alpha Centauri look like. But also, they have a special look for the Peladonians.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they are blonde. But the difference is in hair color. They are blonde, but they have this big prominent stripe down the center of their hair on their scalp that is red. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of goes blonde, red, blonde on the mm-hmm. tops of their heads. And then for their beards, they have handlebars coming out where they're from below their mustache, which are also red, but otherwise the beards are blonde. And I think that's a good, because that kind of patterning in hair, it does occur in a lot of Earth species. You look at dogs and cats and stuff, and they'll have spots in their hair that are different colors. But it doesn't occur in humans. We tend to have, we don't have we don't have stripes in our hair that way.
Right.
And so I think that's a nice low budget way of making the Peladonians look non-human.
Right.
And they put thought into it, because even though Peladon himself is a beardless boy king, because of his Earth Mother heritage, the patterning in his hair is still there, but it's not as clear. It's more of it's not a crisp, clear red stripe down the center of his scalp hair. It's kind of a diffused, more irregular redness in that part of his scalp hair with blonde on each side, and so. I noticed that, and I thought, oh, it's because of his Earth mom.
Yep. Right. That's true.
But they never talk about that.
Yeah.
It's just something the costumers did.
And so speaking of the Peladonians, so we have Peladon, the younger, who is now about to be king. His father had died, so when he was young, and he was raised by these two brothers, Torbus and Hepesh.
Are they brothers? I thought they were just advisors.
No, well, he referred to him as his brother, and they look a lot alike. And I kind of assumed that they meant literal brothers as opposed to perhaps, spiritual brothers. Like
brothers in arms, or something like that.
Brothers in the court. But they do say brother at one point. And so one's the chancellor and the other's Torbus is the chancellor. Hepesh is the high priest. Torbus favors joining the Galactic Federation. Hepesh opposes it. And Hepesh, as you mentioned, eventually has Torbus killed by the Agador. And
I'm a little surprised given, and I was a little confused in the episode by wait. He's been a king since he was a boy, but then by episode 4, he's only getting coronated now. Apparently, we had typically what you'd have happen in a lot of Earth cultures is you would have
a regent.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of what Torbus and Hepesh have been for him, are like co-regents. But normally you'd have, for the sake of political stability, you'd want the new person sworn in quickly to discourage coups and things like that.
Right.
And so even if you've got a regent who's running the show or advisors who are running the show, you would expect the monarch to have already been installed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and they call Peladon King Peladon.
Yeah,
they refer to him as
that.
king the whole time. It's just he's never had the coronation, apparently.
Right. Interesting. And then we also, there's a little bit where they're recounting the legend of Agador in the throne room and about the omen of a stranger appearing. And of course, that's when the Doctor and Jo are brought in, having been found, emerging from the hidden tunnels. So a funny little occurrence. And they pretend, the Doctor pretends to be the chairman delegate from Earth, and Jo, Princess Josephine of TARDIS. And I wondered here, why is the Doctor suddenly so invested in playing this role of Earth delegate, and considering Peladon's admission to the Federation? Why doesn't he oh yeah, so I'm totally the chairman delegate. By the way, I got something to do, and I'll be back later, and then just go find the TARDIS at the base of the mountain.
Well, they've already established he can't climb down to the base of the mountain. He needs these people's help to go get the TARDIS.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And there's a little bit, Jo pokes him at it. It's like, you're enjoying this, aren't you?
Yeah, he does as the Time Lords will later say in the Trial of a Time Lord, he does really do like to meddle a bit, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he kind of enjoys it.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, we should mention too is that the Doctor figures out that the reason why he's there in the first place is because the Time Lords drug him in the TARDIS.
They dragged
Peladon.
the TARDIS there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they have had a history of doing recently,
and will continue to do.
Yeah.
By the way, another little aspect of Peladonian culture that they established that they never talk about, but is just there visually, is the salute that they use on Peladon. Basically, they put their arm horizontally in front of their chest and then bow. Mm-hmm. And they keep doing that in the royal court. And to me, it just looks like they're pretending to be a French waiter, and they just need a cloth draped over their arm.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too. So like we said, the Doctor, immediately suspects that the Ice Warriors are behind the bad things that are going on, like a statue that falls and almost hits Peladon, and other people, getting hurt. And this is his pre-existing prejudice. And Jo ends up going to, sneak into the Ice Warriors' room to find, it was like a device. Arcturus was in his environmental plinth, whatever the mobile plinth that he's on, was tampered with and something taken. So she went to look for it in the Ice Warriors' room and
against
gets caught.
Orders. Against
the Doctor's orders, of course. And gets caught. And then they explain to her, no, we're pacifists. We only fight in self-defense. And she points out that, then why does Sorg have a gun? And I like the answer. In order to preserve peace, it is necessary to survive, which is a good explanation for why you would be armed. Again, very different from later Doctor Who. So we also have this King's champion, a mute champion named Grun, and the Doctor ends up violating the sanctuary of Agador. He ends up wandering into that chapel of Agador, say,
which they call the Holy of Holies,
right? And so that's a very, very serious offense, and of course it means death. But in order to
it allows of no defense. King Peladon tells him, to this charge the laws of Peladon allow of no defense and only one punishment, death.
Right.
Which turns out not to quite be true. You can do trial by combat to get out of it, because of course you can.
Yes.
I mean, this is a John Pertwee episode.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say you got to have.
Pertwee fighting.
Yeah, but I find a charge that admits of no defense. How does that work? Someone just has to charge you and you can't defend yourself? Really?
Well,
I mean, anyone could just say, hey, this guy just violated the Holy of Holies, kill him, and you'd have to.
there's this.
I mean,
there are cultures on Earth where that's essentially true right now.
Yeah.
You know, if you get accused of blasphemy in Pakistan by an imam, you're pretty much convicted and sentenced.
I know,
they have a
agreed,
show trial, but yeah.
But this is no show trial. It's like go directly to execution chamber.
That's true. That's true. So we do have this trial by combat in the pit where the Doctor and Grun, who is, I love that you have a shot of, you have to fight the King's champion, and we have this shot of the camera angled up from below Grun, like he's like 8 feet tall or something, which is funny. And then so they have to climb down into this pit, which is surrounded by cargo netting, and it has various weapons inside, and there's an extended fight, and you know it's all very stage fighting. You know, it's like clearly,
yeah. They didn't put too much money into that set. You know, a little bit of sand and some cargo netting, and that was about it.
Yeah, and the sand wasn't all that deep because you could see the floor, like sometimes when their foot would push the sand aside. But the Doctor ends up defeating Grun by shoving his head through the netting and then squeezing his neck with the cords of the net.
But not killing him.
Right.
He says, of course, I'm not going to kill the King's champion, which, of course, we all know you weren't going to do.
Right.
Because of the show it is. So this is a comment in my notes about this sequence in the story, but it's true more broadly of the story. This has that 1960s paint by numbers writing that gets of dialogue that I find annoying because it's so unrealistic. Like after King Peladon has accused or has had the Doctor accused of desecrating the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies, and he's explained what's going to happen, the Doctor protests his innocence and says, you know, I had no idea that that's where the tunnels were leading. I would never have gone in there and so forth. And then Joe pops up with this paint by numbers dialogue of, but you must believe him.
Right.
And it's like, okay, give him some evidence, you know, but just don't, I don't know why this mode of writing was so common back in this era of television, but there's this argument style that is completely unrealistic, or at least comes across to me as completely unrealistic, where you have like, that's just a chance we'll have to take, or, you know, but you must believe him and stuff. I just don't know what it is with writers from this period.
It's almost like we have to have the hysterical woman pleading for the life of the hero trope going on, you know?
Well, not even that. You can have men say things like, but you must believe me.
Right.
And it's like, well, give them some evidence, you know, give them an argument.
Well, then I would be interested in, you know, what popular novels and so on at the time would be. You know, they'd be similar writing, especially more like the pulp type novels. And I wonder if, you know, because for a long time, acting in television was seen as kind of lowbrow. You know, your goal as an actor was to start in television so that you could then move to movies.
Right.
And now it's kind of almost reversed, but where actors are more willing to be on TV. And I wonder if the same was for writers, where writing for TV serials like this were considered lowbrow. And so it didn't always attract the best writers with the best plot lines or conversation lines.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you had to produce, you know, how many dozens of episodes a year, and just, you know, you're churning out stuff at this point. It's possible.
The also connected with this sequence, I just even though it's self-formulaic to have, you know, a main character like John Pertwee who has a special inclination in this direction, get him into a fight scene, like a one-on-one fight scene, like a duel like this. Wow, they would never do that with Jodie Whittaker.
No.
Can you imagine putting Jodie Whittaker in this same, you know, cargo netting arena with weapons and have her physically fight somebody? It's very hard to imagine that happening, but
trying to imagine other doctors.
Shows.
Yeah.
I can imagine other doctors being put in that situation,
but
not her. And it shows how the show has limited itself dramatically in what it will consider doing these days.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been the first or the second, but maybe the fourth and the fifth.
Yeah, and it wouldn't necessarily be because the first
sixth
woman doctor or anything like that, but just the way they've written that doctor would not permit it.
Right. Yeah, because I could see the ninth doctor, but I really don't.
Like if the doctor regenerates into Lara Croft Tomb Raider, she could totally do that.
Oh yeah,
well, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
The next doctor is going to be. That would be wow. So there's a moment here where Hepesh, after the doctor's been sentenced to trial by combat, Hepesh comes to the doctor, and kind of offers him an out. Mm-hmm. Here's a secret passage. Like, go take this passage, go to your ship, and go and just escape, and it'll be fine. I'm on your side.
And take Joe with you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like he doesn't want the doctor to necessarily die. He just wants him out of the way.
And he's explicit about that. The doctor says, well, how do I know you won't just kill me on the way there? And he says, because I don't want you dead. The Galactic Federation would totally stomp our butts if anything happens to you. I want you out of here. I don't want you dead.
Right.
And he later says the same thing after he's done the coup with and has King Peladon as hostage. He says the same thing to all of the other delegates. I don't want trouble with the Federation. I just want you gone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He's afraid of the future and technology, that it would replace the tradition and religion of Peladon, and the usual fear of change, fear of new.
And then there's Arcturus. Supposedly Arcturus has done some dirty dealing in the back, behind with
Hepesh.
With Hepesh. And that's part of the reason why he's opposing this contract, this agreement.
Yeah, what they say is that Arcturus' home planet has no mineral deposits, but Peladon's got lots of them, and so Arcturus has cut a side deal with Hepesh that if I help you thwart the Federation joining plan, we get some mineral trade afterwards. Incidentally, Arcturus dies at this point, and it goes by really fast. We've known for a while. We've known from very early on that Hepesh was up to no good, because we would see him doing dealings in when other characters weren't around. But we also learned over the course of episodes 2 and 3 that he had an accomplice, and we didn't know who that was. But we knew there was an accomplice, that he was allied with someone. And then eventually, because we see Arcturus eavesdropping on a conversation between Joe and the Ice Warriors, we get the evidence that electronically eavesdropping on this conversation. We get the sense that it's Arcturus, but he's finally revealed and immediately killed off at the end of the CargoNet combat sequence, because apparently, and this really goes by fast. It's easy to miss or to misunderstand what's happening. But what happens is at the end, after the Doctor has defeated Grun, Arcturus starts to get a blaster to kill the Doctor with, and Sorg, the Ice Warrior, sees what he's doing and gets out his blaster and kills Arcturus first. So between these close-up shots of blasters being extended, it's a little hard to tell what's going on, but basically Arcturus gets ready to kill the Doctor, but Sorg kills him first. And after that, they talk about how Arcturus was the traitor.
Yeah, part of the problem was that they did it as a cliffhanger, where Arcturus pulls his gun out at the end of episode 3, and then at the beginning of episode 4, we have Sorg using his weapon. So there's this, interim, and it makes it confusing.
Yeah, I also am not happy with the Doctor's running down of this is, given when this was written, you had this meme in our culture about, the Middle Ages were the Dark Ages. And, you still have people who are less educated saying that kind of thing, but at least there's scholarly pushback on that now.
Right.
But there wasn't so much, because you had, England was a Protestant country. And so it was in the interest of the Church of England to portray the Catholic Middle Ages as if they were dark. And so, there's this, and it's being driven by anti-Catholic prejudice, basically. You run into that in Protestant countries.
Yep.
Well, it's affecting the writing of this episode.
Yeah.
Because the Doctor, it is so clearly right. It's just assumed that joining the Galactic Federation is a good thing, and that represents progress and what should be done. And the Doctor will scold Hepesh, the high priest, who's change hesitant, about, the alternative is leaving your people, because Hepesh says, I want my people to be free. They're going to lose autonomy if they're part of the Federation. And the Doctor says, oh, are they free now? Imprisoned by ritual and superstition? Is it like, okay, what's wrong with ritual? And who are you to say there's superstition involved here? This is just a cipher for talking about the Earth Middle Ages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was a little subtler then, a lot more out in the open these days.
Well, it was not very subtle, because like the first scene is the superstitious high priest having the progressive, we want to change the world and join the Federation person killed.
That's true. Yeah, it's more things change.
That's not very subtle.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
I do like, though, how it kind of at this point in the narrative, or at least before the battle with Grun, both Hepesh and the Ice Warriors are independently trying to help the Doctor escape.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Hepesh has given him a map and told him, just go out, get out of here, take your princess and go. And the Ice Warriors are like plotting with Joe to like break into the Doctor's cell and get him out. And I love that independent parallel tracks of, these two antagonists different groups are going to help the Doctor escape.
So one of the fun things that happens is that the Doctor, now that he knows that Agador is just this beast, this
man-bear pig,
thank you.
It's with one horn, so it's a unicorn man-bear pig.
Yeah, it's almost like a Mugato a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looked a lot like that. Yeah,
if you dipped it in chocolate.
Yes, so he decides he's going to get control of it by hypnotizing it, and so he modifies the sonic with this mirror on top. And I thought it was funny, like when he tests it out, he almost hypnotizes himself, and then he shows it to Joe and hypnotizes her.
Accidentally.
Yep. So it's very effective. And then as he's hypnotizing the Agador, he sings this Venusian lullaby to it.
Yeah, and Venusian lullabies need more words in them than just Arun.
Right.
It's like, wow, he keeps saying that word over and over. Okay, come on, you can be more creative than this, guys. Singing a lullaby, I mean, yes, they will have occasional recurring words in them, but 90% of the lullaby should not be John Pertwee ad-libbing Arun, 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 Arun. Like, we can do better than that.
Yeah, it went on and on and on. Yeah. And then so he ends up getting the beast to the throne room to prove that it's not, their god Agador, but just a beast. And Hepesh makes the classic error of ordering the beast to attack the hero, and the beast instead attacks him because the beast has come to love the Doctor, of course.
Now he's a big furry dog.
Yep. And Hepesh gets mauled and dies. And then we have after that, so the TARDIS has been rescued and brought up to the castle.
Although he dies with an element of nobility because he says as he's dying, I hope I was wrong. He wishes Peladon, which now has a future in the Federation, he hopes that that's the right thing.
Right. So Peladon asks Joe to stay and be his queen, and she considers it. There's a moment where she's kind of thinking about it, and she even asks, the Doctor even asks her, "Are you thinking of staying behind?" And
I'd have a few questions first. I mean, do you have indoor plumbing on this planet?
Yeah, exactly.
How's your health care?
Yeah.
So they have the TARDIS back, but they're going to go to the coronation first, and then before they take off. And the Doctor name drops that it's the first coronation since either Elizabeth I or Queen Victoria. I can't exactly remember. And Joe accuses him of being a name dropper, which the Doctor is in all his incarnations. Nothing but a name dropper. But they find out that the real delegate from Earth has finally shown up. I'm not sure where she's been, but she's in the credits. She's listed as Amazonia of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if why she has a name.
She might have been from Brazil then.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. She's arguing with Alpha Centauri and Isler about the whether she's the actual delegate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the Doctor and Joe kind of hear from we better not go to the coronation. And so Joe makes him take her to Queen Victoria's coronation. I've already seen it. Well, I haven't, so we're going again.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And then they go. And the people, the Amazonia and Isler and the others, see the TARDIS disappear and are amazed. So
yeah, as you do.
Yeah, as you do. So, Father Cory, any last thoughts about this one?
So there's a scene where Hepesh is putting incense in a bowl before the throne of Agador, or the shrine of Agador, and of course it's got some little flash powder. It's like, maybe I need to do that. Mixing a little flash powder into our incense for mass. Maybe they'll liven up a little bit. People will want to come to
jazz up the Easter Vigil.
Get a little bit of show.
Well, you do live in a part of the country where folks have shotguns in the back windows of their pickups, so.
A little gunpowder in there.
Gunpowder in the incense would
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Mixing a little gunpowder.
How about you, Jimmy?
So Alpha Centauri is described by the Doctor in this as a hermaphrodite hexapod. So he expressly addresses the fact that it's not a he or a she; it's an it.
Mm-hmm.
And it does have 6 limbs, which hexapod would mean 6 foot.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't travel on any of its 6 limbs. It travels on the main base of the central stalk of its body, and that would mean it's not so much a hermaphrodite hexapod, because it doesn't use its its feet for locomotion. Instead, it's more like a hermaphrodite hexagastropod. It travels on its central stalk like a slug or something, only in an upright posture. So a gastropod, gastro means stomach and pod means foot, so a slug travels on its stomach. Its stomach is its foot. And that's basically the body design that Alpha Centauri is using, except it's got these additional arms for manipulation, but it doesn't use them for locomotion. Also, Alpha Centauri is the second longest time gap between original appearance and being brought back on New Who. For Alpha Centauri, it was 43 years between appearances. The longest is the Great Intelligence, which had 44 years.
Oh,
interesting.
One of the things that the king doesn't know about is when the Doctor is accused of desecrating the Holy of Holies, is that there are secret tunnels down there. And Hepesh assures him there aren't, but just take the king down there. We've got a bunch of squabbling about are there secret tunnels or not. Take him to them.
Right.
Well, there's one right in the throne room there, because there's the guard that sneaks out the back of the throne room, and Joe does as well.
Right.
Let's see. Alpha Centauri I have in my notes, is basically a biological version of C-3PO. An officious, cowardly, annoying diplomat used largely for comic relief.
Right.
And I just couldn't help being reminded of C-3PO. I liked the fact that Peladon uses purple as a royal color, just like we do.
Yep.
I don't know if their royals got it from the snot of sea slugs the way our royals did. But purple was a good quality. Purple was hard to make as a dye in the ancient world, and that's why it got associated with royalty. They also I use blue as an accent color in that purple-blue royal scheme. I think that works well. On the other hand, what I don't think works well is the amnesty that King Peladon gave to all of the soldiers that participated in the coup against him. It's like, okay, dude, got to kill those guys. I'm telling you, your own guards have taken up arms against you. They have to die. You cannot just forgive them because of what this will do for the future. They've taken up arms against you once already. You cannot trust these guys anymore. And if you fire them, that will definitely cause them to want to knock you over again. So they can't remain in your employ because you can't trust them, and you can't just cut them loose and tell them to go learn to code. So you can either effectively imprison them for a really long time if you have effective prisons, or you got to kill them. But one way or another, you got to make an example of these guys. You are not safe as a king employing people who have already taken their swords and turned them against you.
Yeah.
I don't care if someone was leading them. They didn't have to do that. They're not Borg. These men are untrustworthy.
Yep. No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, they have to be. Yeah, that is the least realistic thing with that is, a king would never just say, no, it's okay.
Oh, Jimmy, that's just, it's just Peladon showing how progressive he is so that he can join the Galactic Federation. Come on, get with the times.
Maybe exile them anyway. So I think that should do it for us this time. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Jacob P., Ted H., Nicholas W., Janet K., and Nancy. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So that's it from us. What did you think of The Curse of Peladon? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, or visit the new StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And just to let you know, you do not have to be a patron to join us there, and everyone is welcome, so check it out. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the 12th Doctor story, The Robot of Sherwood. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Dom.
Father Cory Sticha, thank you as well.
Thank you, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, Haroon, Haroon, Haroon.